Hello, everyone, and I am so thrilled to welcome you to the NextGen Government Training Summit, where we're supporting development government. It's a real jazzy tune to get us started today. So thanks again, everyone, for coming to NextGen. We are so thrilled to have you. By way of introductions, my name is Emily Jarvis, and I'm the director of NextGen here at GovLoop. And today marks our 14th year we've hosted this summit. Can you believe it? I certainly can't. It doesn't feel a day over 8, is what I'm saying. And I can't wait to jump into a full day of content geared towards helping you master your professional development, whether that means you're a subject matter expert, a first-time supervisor, maybe you're aspiring to be a manager, or you're just wanting to brush up on a few skills. You're in the right place. So thank you all so much for joining us. And in order to make the experience as great as possible for all of you, I want to spend a tiny bit of time this morning explaining the environment. First things first, you can access all the areas in the environment from the lobby page. So if you get lost in the environment, just go back to the lobby and everything is clickable from there. In the conference hall is where you can access the keynotes and breakout sessions throughout the day. Of course, you can chat with your government peers in the networking lounge, so swing by and say hello. There's definitely a lot of engagement happening over there. You can also download a ton of great resources from the exhibit hall. And our sponsors are ready to answer all of your questions and have lots of great resources for you. So you definitely want to check those out. Plus, the more active you are in the environment, the higher up on the leaderboard you're going to be. And the top 100 leaderboard participants will win an Amazon gift card. And if you're anything like me, we can always use a little bit of a gift card. All right, a few more tidbits for you all. The Resource Center. Here is where you are going to find all of your summit-specific resources. Think things like slide decks, your CPE evaluations, the agenda. All that stuff is located in the Resource Center. And if all else fails and you get a little confused or lost in the environment, don't worry. Just head over to that help desk, and my colleagues Leah and Karina will make sure to get all of your questions answered, because we want this to be as good of an experience as possible for you. All right, with all of that summit stuff out of the way, let me tell you a little bit about some housekeeping notes for this session that we're in right now. First things first, if you're on Twitter, please follow along with us using the hashtag NextGenGov. We want to hear what you're thinking and hearing as well. We also have some great resources available for you to download in this console itself, and that includes the slide deck with all the great info that you're going to see soon, so make sure you check those out. If you do need the closed captioning feature, just look for the icon on the bottom right-hand side of the media player. That's where my face is showing up for you all right now. That's where you'll get the closed captioning feature. We also have the Q&A tab. So if you're running into any trouble in this environment, feel free to put a question into the Q&A tab, and my colleague Maddie will get your questions answered. And it's that same portal where you can ask our experts questions, so don't you dare be shy. Put your questions in early and often. And like I said, if you miss a tidbit or two along the way, fret not, because we're going to be sending you a link to the entire environment tomorrow so that you can be able to attend the sessions again, download more resources, all of that good stuff. All right, with all of that housekeeping out of the way, I want to send a special thank you to our NextGen Alliance partners. Those include American University School of Public Affairs, which just happens to be my alma mater, so go Eagles, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Code for America, and more. This event wouldn't be possible without them, so thank you all so much. All right, I mentioned it a second ago, but we are giving out 1 CPE credit, or continuing professional education credit, for your participation in today's session, which is exciting, right? We all need training credits. Here's how you're going to get that credit. First, you're going to take all of the polls in the session. You're going to stay in the session the entire time. I mean, where would you be going anyways, right? And then you're going to fill out the post-event CPE evaluation to get your credit. The CPE evaluation can be found both in this resource module on this webinar console right here, as well as in the resource center in the main environment. And all CPEs will be emailed directly to you once we confirm you've met all those requirements. And speaking of CPEs, we're going to launch our first poll. And for our first poll question, we want to know, is this your first NextGen? Have you been here before? Is this your first time around the block? Or perhaps you've been to all 14. I don't know. I haven't even been to all 14. So maybe someone here has even been to more sessions than I have. While you take that poll, I'm going to introduce our opening keynote. And our opening keynote is talking about eliminating stress and burnout, a symphony for success. And I just love that title because it sounds so wonderfully musical. And for those of you that know me, know I have zero musical talent. So anytime I can siphon off some greatness from others, I love it. And joining us for his keynote is Julian Reeve. He is a burnout specialist and the former musical director of Hamilton. Thanks so much for being with us today, Julian. All right.
Thanks for asking me. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's get the results of the first poll. And it looks like 68% of you, this is your first NextGen. So we are so excited to have all these new faces in the mix. And for those of you that have been here 3+ times, we are thrilled that you are back with us again. So, like I said, to kick things off, we are going to hand the reins over to Julian. So Julian, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Research recently released by Eagle Hill, which is a consultancy company, suggests that 65% of all government employees are feeling burned out at work. Now, when we try and understand why, we do well to take into consideration the most recent data released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which suggests that there are more government job openings now than at any time in the past 20 years. Workloads and burnout rates are skyrocketing due to months-long vacancies and chronic staff shortages, with the situation now so bad, it's reported that up to 1/3 of all government employees are considering finding a new job in the next 12 months. Now, leaving a job due to stress and burnout should obviously be regarded as a kind of last resort, right? But with these workloads and staff shortages unlikely to cease anytime soon, what do we do? Do we just blindly continue on these never-ending cycles of work, paying zero attention to work-life balance because there just isn't time? Do we ignore the considerable consequences caused by our stress and burnout and the dramatic effects it has on our physical and mental health, and just hope that we're strong enough to continue pushing through? Maybe we just surrender to the overwhelm, the exhaustion, the detachment, the cynicism, the lack of accomplishment, and everything else that burnout throws at us. And maybe we just continue to pray that this nightmare will end soon. Or we take control. We put a flag in the sand and we say, you know what? No more. I'm worth more than this. I might not be able to control the workload. I might not be able to control the staff shortages, but what I can control is me. What I can control is how I show up at work every day. What I can control is how I reframe my approach to work so that actually I can better handle my situation. And that's really what today's session is about. It's about giving you some tools, some knowledge, so that you can go after the promotion you're chasing and the one after that in healthier ways, avoiding stress and burnout. Today is about pressing reset, if you like, on some of your thinking, on some of your behaviors, on some of your habits. Now, in the interest of pressing reset this morning, I'd love to start by actually resetting your parasympathetic nervous system. Now, your parasympathetic nervous system, as I'm sure you know, is the part of your brain that actually controls your stress response. Your stress response is fight, flight, or freeze. And people like us that work in very busy environments can often get stuck in the stress response. So actually resetting the parasympathetic nervous system allows it to do its job and switch that response off. How do we achieve that? We do what we do every day, but we do it consciously. We take a deep breath. I'd love to do that with you this morning to this count. If you're sat down, stood up, doesn't matter. Eyes open, eyes closed, doesn't matter. But I'd love for us, if you're game, just to breathe in through your nose for 4 counts and breathe out through your mouth for 6. I love conducting, so I will count you in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Slightly slower now. Breathe in. Breathe out. Really allow this breath just to flow around your body. Breathe in and breathe out. There you go. Good, 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 good. That's it. Your parasympathetic nervous system is now reset. Okay. Now that's obviously something super simple that we can do kind of all day, every day, if we like, whenever we're feeling stressed and burnout. Now we're off. Let me ask you a question to start this morning. Do you have a self-care plan for stress and burnout? Answer that question for me. While you do, let me just tell you a little bit about me. So my name is Julian Reeve. I'm thrilled to be here this morning talking about stress and burnout. Like many people on this call, I've been a high achiever for as long as I can remember. I was born in Cambridge, England. That's where the accent's from. And I actually went to university in Cambridge to study music and business. And I've been very fortunate to have a very nice career in both fields. In business, I founded 4 successful companies in the creative sector. As a musician, I've been so lucky to travel the world performing to millions of people across 6 continents with Broadway shows. I've taken 20 Broadway shows around the world, including the Broadway musical Hamilton. Now, Hamilton, as you know, was obviously a smash hit. 2015, it was born. I joined the company on Broadway in 2016 and then took out the first national tour at the front of 2017 to San Francisco. So you might be thinking, okay, how did we get from Hamilton to talking about stress and burnout? And the answer is this. 3 months into this incredible job, I experienced a stress-related heart attack. This happened. My body basically said no more to my years of ambition, my years of stress associated with high achievement. Now, as you can imagine, that was a highly difficult situation, but it also provided a platform. It provided me with an opportunity to learn, to understand more about why we experience stress, why we burn out. And I've since transferred all of that knowledge together with 5 years of research and work with high achievers to now specialize in this. I now work with organizations and great people like you in terms of how we can get rid of stress and burnout. And my aim is to have worked with 2 million leaders and organizations to help them overcome stress and burnout by the year 2035. So that's me. Let's talk about you. Let's go back to this poll. Do we have any results there? Okay, great. So yes is 17.3%, no is 29.6%, and sort of is 53.1%. Well, thank you for your honesty to start with. Being kind of upfront about this sort of knowledge is really important. These are very, very typical figures I find in this type of work. Very often, high achievers have some objections to taking care of themselves, right? The common objections are time. I just don't have enough time to actually look after myself. Money. I don't have enough money to eat as I'd like to be able to afford the gym membership. Another common objection is actually, I can handle stress. I don't need to worry about it. Or it's not important. That's another one. There's a lot of shame and fear attached to stress and burnout, in my experience. There's a lot of shame that, we're not strong enough, right? That we should be stronger to be able to handle the stress. And there's also the fear that, if we are appearing that vulnerable, that actually it won't go down well in the workplace. But it's so important that we do, that actually we start to put ourselves first, put that flag in the sand that I was talking about earlier, and address stress. And here's why. As we're going to find out in a minute, stress is the principal driver to burnout, okay? Stress is well documented to bring all of these issues: cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, heart attack, strokes, all that stuff. Stress contributes to nearly 2.8 million worker deaths a year around the world. That's a startling number. Now, stress obviously isn't just associated with our health. We lose productivity. It's estimated that we lose up to 30 minutes a day. You stack that up over a month, over a year. That's what stress does to us. And it's also an expensive business, costing upwards of $190 billion a year in America alone. Now, as that last slide intimated, stress and burnout are two different things, okay? Stress is the principal driver to burnout. I like to think of stress like this. It's too much work, not enough time, I'm stressed. I like to think of burnout like this. I have nothing left. I got nothing left to give you. Now, officially, burnout is a syndrome that results from chronic workplace stress that has not been managed properly. Okay, so it results from chronic workplace stress. So it's nothing to do with family concerns, nothing to do with money worries. It's chronic workplace stress that has not been managed properly. Now, to start to understand why we experience stress and why we experience burnout, I'd like to take you on a little bit of a journey. Okay, this is a high achiever's journey. Let's say a high achiever comes and works for the government. Okay, the high achiever will show up, they'll do great work to get great results, and the more they achieve, the more work and responsibility, in this case, the government will give them. All right. Now, the more work a high achiever does, the more stress they will feel, which is a problem for two reasons. We've just found out the first one. Stress is the principal driver to burnout. But secondly, and this is really important to connect with, high achievers love stress. We love it. The reason why we love it is connected to the self-worth theory. It's because it makes us feel successful and accomplished. Now, the more accomplished a high achiever feels, the more work they want to do because they're a high achiever. So they go around this cycle: work, stress, accomplishment, work, stress, accomplishment. Now, the longer the high achiever works for the government, the more that stress will compound. And so they will start to experience external and internal stresses. They will start to experience the long hours, the micromanagement, the poor communication, the unreasonable deadlines. But they will also experience, dependent on who they are, they will also experience internal stresses like perfectionism, imposter syndrome, issues with need for control or procrastination, for example. Now, the longer they go on that journey and experience all of those things, the more likely it is that they will start to experience one of the 6 reasons we burn out. We burn out for these 6 reasons. Dr. Christina Maslach, is like the world leader in burnout, devised these 6 reasons. You understand the first one very, very well, right? Work overload. Secondly, lack of control. You might be experiencing a situation where your boss is micromanaging, for example, or you might have been given a project to lead, but for whatever reason, you're not allowed to do that properly. That is likely to drive you to burnout. Insufficient reward is another huge one for burnout, where you are simply not rewarded for the hard work that you do. You might feel a degree of unfairness, like other people are getting promotions over you unfairly or whatever it is. There might be a breakdown of community where you've got so much to do, or you're so focused that you shut everything out and you start to shut down because you're not surrounding yourself by the right people. Or there might be a conflict of values. There might be a conflict of values, like your personal value system might be A, and for whatever reason, the project that you're working on might be B. That is a big driver to burnout. Now, this high achiever at this point, if they're going through all of this, they are very likely to feel and experience burnout across one of the three dimensions. Overwhelming exhaustion. They will just be done physically. They will start to break down. They will start to experience cynicism. They get so cynical about their work, right? They get cynical about who they work with, who they work for, and that leads them to detach because they don't want anything to do with it. So they pull away. So they detach from the work, from the people, but they can also detach from themselves, strangely. I experienced this in my burnout. It was almost like I was watching myself do my work. Really weird. Now, they will also experience being super ineffective. Our productivity goes through the floor when we burn out. We lead badly, we manage badly, and all of that leads to a chronic lack of accomplishment, which is a nightmare for a high achiever. Now, what do we do about it? Well, your organization, in this case the government, needs to supply you with a positive social environment, great culture, flexible systems, and supportive management styles. There's a whole list. We don't have time to go into that today because you're not in control of that. What you are in control of is you. And this is the bit where we start to write your symphony for success. We start to put you first, and we start to go, this is how I can work through all of this stress and all of this burnout. Now, if you know your music, you will know that most symphonies come with 4 movements. There was only ever one symphony that didn't have 4 movements. And this is no different. Movement number 1 is self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is so important as far as stress and burnout management goes. It's so important that we understand ourselves. And that's what self-awareness is. It's understanding ourselves and how we act and how we think and what our priorities are and what our passions are, what our values are, etc., etc. But it's also about how we fit into the world, and it's about how others see us, right? Now, remarkably, and this data comes from Dr. Tasha Eurich, who's like the world leader in self-awareness book Insight for research for that. She discovered that 95% of us think that we have adequate self-awareness. But the actual number, get this, the actual number is somewhere between 12 and 15%. That's a shocking statistic. That basically means that 80% of us at any one time are walking around lying to ourselves, about what we're feeling, about all the stuff. So it's little wonder that we burn out because we don't know that we're experiencing the stress. We're just not aware of it. So how do we start developing self-awareness? We ask super basic, simple questions. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I sensing? There's a 4th one that I'll add on in a minute, but these 3 questions are super powerful. Why? Because they give us opportunity. Let's take this as an example. What am I feeling? I'm stressed right now, super stressed. Okay, what's driving my feeling of stress? Let's find the trigger. What actually caused this situation? Opportunity number 2, can I actually remove myself from this situation? Can I take myself out of it altogether? Can I reframe my thinking to be able to react to the situation differently? Sometimes that's the most powerful way to actually work through stress, is a simple shift in thinking, right? Opportunity number 4, what else can I do to stop feeling what I am? Those 3 questions are so powerful because they lead us to all sorts of opportunity. They also lead us to question number 4, which is, what do I need right now? I love that question so much because it can be practical. What do I need to do? I need to send an email to the boss. But it can also be, you know what? I need a hug, right? So those 4 questions, start getting into the habit of asking those, and you'll be well on your way to writing your first movement. Movement number 2 is self-care. Now, I'm not going to stand here today and talk about the importance of exercise or diet or sleep. You're intelligent people. You know that. You understand that. There's a reason why you don't do those things sometimes, and that's largely what today is about. It's about rewiring you to prioritize you. And to help get you there as far as self-care goes, we need to get you into a space of radical self-care. Now, what does radical self-care look like? Well, it starts with acceptance. Like it or not, guys, you have to accept your situation. We've spoken about organizational and individual responsibilities for stress and burnout management. Like it or not, there's not much you can do about your organization, especially something the size of the government, right? Acceptance of that is so important, because once you've accepted it and gone, okay, only I can change this, then you're motivated to take action. Permission is next. You need permission to start approaching your work differently. You need to give yourself permission that it's okay not to be perfect all the time. You need to give yourself permission that it's okay to try new things, because those new things actually might be better things. It all starts with permission. Emotional reconnection. I see this in my clients all the time. This one has been so prevalent since the pandemic. The pandemic gave us an extra layer of self-reliance, right? It allowed us another layer to just push through. But to do that, we had to shut down emotionally. Many people are still continuing that practice, and we have to stop. We have to reconnect with other people emotionally, but also mainly with ourselves. Reframing success is another big part of radical self-care. We need to learn that it's not all about the result. A big part of stress and burnout management is understanding the journey to the result is actually arguably even more important than the result itself. That actually, when we commit to the journey being healthy, for example, I'm going to work for 55 minutes, then set an alarm and stop for 5. What am I going to do? I'm going to stand up. I'm going to stretch. What else am I going to do? I'm going to take some water so that I'm hydrated. The journey to the result is so important. That's movement number 2. Movement number 3 is self-compassion. Now, I was introduced to self-compassion by a wonderful psychologist in San Francisco who helped me after my heart attack, lovely man by the name of Michael Klein. What is self-compassion? Well, ostensibly, it's turning the wonderful compassion that we can build for other people and turn it on to ourselves. It's made up of 3 components. Self-kindness, where we learn to be as kind to ourselves as we are to others. Mindfulness, where we learn to observe what's happening around us, but only to observe, not to engage or to react. And then there's common humanity, where we basically understand and really deeply connect with what we are going through isn't unique. Everybody goes through these things. Now, how do we start building self-compassion? Well, a great way that I use with my clients a lot is this whole kind of best friend technique. So let me introduce you to Sarah, right? Let's say that Sarah works for the government. And as you can see right now, she is stressed and burned out, and she's at her wit's end. She can't sleep. She's overworked. She's doing 3 or 4 different people's jobs right now. And she is literally, she doesn't know what to do. She's done. Now let's come out of the story. Let's imagine that Sarah is a friend of yours. She's not a colleague, she's a friend. Now let's imagine that Sarah has texted you this morning saying, listen, I am really struggling. I could do with a chat. Do you have time for coffee later? Let's say that you agree to meet for coffee, and when you do, that Sarah just loses it. She's so upset. She's so happy to see you, and she just comes out with all of this stuff, and she talks for like 15 minutes about how bad her situation is. What do you say as her friend to help her feel better? Just think about that for a minute. What's some of the language that you would use with Sarah to help that situation move forward, more positive, more care, more love? What would you say to her? Now, the idea of that exercise is that that's the language we have to start learning to use for us, for ourselves. We have such a wonderful ability to be compassionate to Sarah, but we suck at being good to ourselves, don't we? Really practicing that language is such a great way to do it, as is this. If you have, like I did, a bullying inner critic, right? An inner critic, it just gives you a really hard time all of the time, then try and visualize it. Come up with an identity for them. Why? Because when that voice next comes in your head, if you visualize them, you can start to put this language in front of what they are saying. And that visualization really helps. This is my inner critic. This is J2 is his name. Please do not be fooled by that smile. He is a nasty SOB, let me assure you of that. All right, so that is movement number 3. Movement number 4 is self-respect. This is the last movement. Now, self-respect is so important because we have to, at some point with stress and management, draw the line. We have to just say enough. We have to start building better boundaries for ourselves. We can't expect our boss or our colleagues to have solid boundaries unless we've established them ourselves. We need to know what they are, we need to commit to them, and we need to stick to them. We need to understand our value system. We need to know why we get out of bed every day. We need to know what keeps us going in stressful environments so that actually we can get to the end, and values are so, so important. Ultimately, we need to learn to say no. Right? Now that's easier said than done, I get it, but there are a million ways to say no. We just need to find the language and have the self-respect to be able to say these things. So there you have it. There are the 4 movements for your symphony for success. Commitment to each of those movements is so, so important when it comes to stress and burnout management. And I really hope that you're kind of inspired now to kind of take some action with all of that sort of stuff. If you are, then head over to my website. This is julianreeve.com/govloop. I'm going to put that in the chat right now. And I've set up something for you there that will offer you more information. I'm going to leave you with this, and it goes right back to Alexander Hamilton. It's fair to say, isn't it, that Alexander Hamilton is a high achiever, right? He wrote the Constitution, he wrote the Bill of Rights, he founded the post office, founded the banking system. Now, if you know the show, you'll understand that his stress and his burnout, his commitment to success, his commitment to himself caused him to experience huge amounts of stress, and it caused him to burn out, which cost him dearly. Now, just for a second, imagine how much more Alexander Hamilton might have achieved had he actually put himself first, had he committed to self-awareness, self-care, self-compassion, self-respect. How much more could he have achieved, and what kind of world might we be living in now? Thanks for listening.
Thanks for kicking us off, Julian. I really appreciate it. And you have definitely given us some things to think about. And I really appreciate that. So everyone, let's give Julian a virtual round of applause. But our theme of being a little overwhelmed is not going anywhere, because up next, we're talking about being overworked and the do's and don'ts for a better work-life balance. And leading that conversation is one of our NextGen favorites, Frieda Edgette. Frieda is the SES Leading Edge Faculty Chair for the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. So Frieda, thank you so much for being here. And I know we are building on a lot of the concepts that Julian just talked about, so I will hand the reins over to you.
Thank you so much, Emily, and good morning, good day to our NextGen community. My name is Frieda Edgette. I am a former government affairs specialist, neuropolitics professor turned award-winning international executive coach and organizational strategist, and now a proud member of the Federal Executive Institute faculty, hell-bent on bringing wellness-based performance to the civic class. So I have long been a friend, a champion, an ally of NextGen, and it's wonderful to be in the virtual space together with you today. So thank you, Emily, for the invitation, and Maddie and everyone. So as Emily mentioned, thank you, Julian, because I don't have to talk about the science or anything like that. Really, we're going to be going a little bit deeper and building on, as Emily said, what Julian just very articulately outlined of key components of burnout. And what I invite each of you to do, this is going to be a bit of a learning lab, as well as some action planning of walking away from today with some specific accessible tactics that you can easily implement into the day-to-day of your civic life. So get a pen, get a piece of paper or notebook. I personally am returning to writing. There's something very cathartic and meaningful. Usually I just start in Evernote, but I'm returning to the pen. So I encourage you to do the same. So who here feels a little bit like this? I know that even listening to Julian, I could feel my heart racing in certain moments as he was talking about stress. And I'm going to share a bit of my personal story too. I started my career doing public health policy across the country, working in 25 states and across 5 continents, implementing public health legislation. And as we know, having lived through the COVID era, public health policy and public health is fundamentally about behavioral change. I was operating on all cylinders. I was winning my campaigns. I was elevating, found my life partner, got married, things were thriving. And on the outside, I looked like I was incredibly successful. But on the inside, I was actually dying. I was trundling toward the bottom of the bottom of a bottom of what was a 15-year eating disorder that was really ruling me and controlling me and keeping me from being authentic and whole. And, May, we're celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I feel that much more compelled to share my story. So I suffered from everything from anorexia, restriction as a means of creating an illusion of control from the unmanageability of life. I exercised every kind of purging you can think of. I'm not going to go into the details, as a means of getting rid of this intensity that was within me without having the tools I really needed to cope effectively. And the compulsive overeating was really about seeking false comfort and companionship from food, as well as cloaking feelings of shame for who I was. So I had a particularly aggressive purge, and I was looking in the mirror, my eyes were bloodshot, and I was like, I will lose everything if I don't get my together. And it was a kismet moment, because I was slated to go on sabbatical from my job and move to London. So there's definitely a UK thread this morning as well, to go back to school to get my master's in organizational and social psychology. And I had, for the first time in 15 years, total anonymity and the opportunity to double down and think about who I was and what I needed. So I let go of the behaviors. I cried more than I've ever had. And I found myself in Hyde Park walking around questioning what's my motivation. And I had this aha moment that although not everyone suffers from an eating disorder, those of us that care most deeply in the civic space have something that gets in the way of being our best selves. So I quit my job from my government affairs firm, and to the chagrin of my parents, like, what is she doing? And dived deep into the neurosciences, the social sciences, how they intersected with political psychology, organizational behavior, authentic leadership, mindfulness, and elite athletics, and returned to the United States, introducing accessible evidence-based practices to boost well-being, as well as our productivity and performance within the civic space. So for today, that's really what we're going to be exploring. So, as I mentioned, not everyone struggles from an eating disorder or addiction. There's something that's getting in your way. So just take a moment and name what you feel is one of your biggest hurdles to being your best self. Some of these are internal, right? It could be self-limiting beliefs. It could be patterns of behavior. It could be depletion. There's also external, right? There's a lot of things that are outside of our control. The media environment, the infrastructure, the system in which we work in, right? 3 up levels of leadership, what have you, budget, resources, a finite amount of time. But when we name it, then we can tame it. And studies actually show that just by naming our emotions, I'm scared, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm excited, that it actually will reduce the stress hormones in our brains. So for today, Julian mentioned the core components of burnout. So we're just going to do a high-level refresher, and then again, dive into some of those strategies that you can implement immediately into your day-to-day. So here's another angle if we look at it very prescriptively around burnout. And this is taken from the Mayo Clinic. It's a questionnaire that outlines 10 different dimensions of well-being. So going through, and all sports cast these, and ask yourself yes and no. Maybe make a note of anything that feels most alive or impactful for you. Are you cynical? You're critical. Like, I don't believe it, whatever, kind of that whatever attitude. Are you dragging? And if you're dragging yourself to work physically and it's just the other room, making note of that. In trouble getting started, like a lack of focus, inattention, drag. Irritable, impatient, no matter what anyone says, there's this inability to connect or please. Just a lack of energy. It's hard to concentrate, lack of satisfaction with your accomplishments, where maybe you used to feel so motivated and inspired, but nothing seems to ignite that fire within you. You feel disillusioned. You're using substances, behaviors, maladaptive behaviors to feel better or just not feel, to numb out entirely. Your sleep's changed, and then trouble, physical sensations, right? Whether it's your digestion, headaches, or other complaints. So based on this assessment, where are you in terms of burnout? So Emily will launch the poll. We'll give you a few moments to bottom line in where you're feeling. How burned out are you?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Frieda. And while folks are taking the poll, I just want to say there are a lot of comments, Frieda, in here about appreciating how honest you are about sort of your own experience and your experience with anorexia. And I think that's something that is so beautiful that you're willing to share with us, but can be so hard for some folks because you internalize oftentimes some of these things, and there's all these other elements that go along with voicing things sometimes, whether it's shame or you're embarrassed or whatever the case might be. So first and foremost, just want to say thank you for sharing. And second, wow, what advice do you have for, I guess, amping up some of that bravery sometimes to just be able to say, this is what I'm dealing with, and these are some of the factors that are contributing to where I am right now?
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, everyone, for your encouragement. You know, I believe fully. I have 11 and a half years now, one day at a time, and about at 6 years into my recovery is when I became very public and really owned it. And I found that every time I share my story, even if it can help one person, that it's worth it. And that by sharing my story, it further heals me and empowers others. And sharing lived experience, sharing with those that have similar lived experience, there is something incredibly, incredibly powerful. One, it destigmatizes. And there's something about being fully seen and heard, because so much of mental health challenges and conditions feed off of isolation. The Surgeon General actually just released a new report on 50% of Americans, adults, are struggling with loneliness, and it has similar effects of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's a really, really serious issue. And the insidiousness about living with a mental health challenge, whether it's an addictive behavior or depression and anxiety, is that the story that it tells you is to close off, to remain silent, to hide in secrecy and shame, when the solution, the medicine, the antidote is to reach out. So my wish for anyone out there that's struggling, one, if you find yourself in a severe situation, please dial 988. Last year, on a national scale, we launched a new mental health hotline, similar to 911, but focused on mental health, to connect you with local resources. Each of them is connected with local resources, whether they're counselors, peer support networks. And that also, if you can find one person that you can connect with and share deeply and authentically with, that is a powerful first step.
Definitely. All right, here are the results of your poll, Frieda.
Great. Okay, so we're trending. The majority of folks are trending toward a little burnout. So we have a couple of you that are feeling energized, makes me very happy, and then a third of you neutral. So let's do a +1, right? So my wish for each of you today is that you leave with some specific actions that you can take that get you from your N, where you are now, to a +1. So Julian identified and offered one definition of burnout based on the World Health Organization. And this is another element of it from the Mayo Clinic, another kind of clinical perspective. And similar to what he outlined, you can see that it tracks to 3 different areas: energy depletion, cynicism, and then also professional efficacy. So we're going to go deeper into the different components of how to inoculate or ameliorate each of these, right? So energy depletion, you're feeling low energy, deactivated, lethargic. Cynicism, it all doesn't matter. Why am I doing this anyway? And then reduced efficacy, feeling or not being able to see and sense how each of my immediate contributions is feeding into a bigger whole. And one thing I do have to say that makes me very hopeful and optimistic is, one, the Chico Council is prioritizing wellness and well-being. And that also, when we look at our FEV scores, and more organizations across the federal government are focusing on employee engagement and the role that empowerment, bright spots, inclusion, equity, as well as resilience are fundamental to supporting our federal workforce. So what happens if, instead of looking at things like work-life balance, we reframe it as we have a container, right? We have a finite amount of time. There's only one of me. So much can fit, and it's not going to be static. Things and conditions change, always. So what might happen if you reassess on a regular basis what are your essentials and what you choose to pack? What are your needs? Because similar to this image, some things will fit and some things won't. And it's highly dynamic. So we're going to look at self-care. We're going to focus on bright spots as an anecdote to cynicism, and then agency is as an anecdote to reduced efficacy. So do prioritize self-care, as Julian mentioned. And I have to say, self-compassion is a great form of self-care. That's something that I'm personally working on constantly, because even though I have been free of the behaviors, the voice in my head that tells me to do crazy stuff, or that body obsession, or food planning in 3 years, or whatever, is the solution, is a note and a sign to me that something is off, that a basic need is not being met. So when I say basic needs, I mean basic. If you're hungry, eat. If you're lonely, please try to reach out. Text a friend, make a call to a trusted ally, even go outside and physically surround yourself with other people can break that sense of isolation. If you're anxious, engage your physical senses, right? Reach out, pray, meditate, move your body, go to the bathroom. I'm serious, right? Drink some water. And if you're tired, sleep. If you don't get 8 hours of sleep, I know Emily and I both have toddlers, that like does not exist. Or she has a 9-month-old. I have a toddler now, but he still does not sleep through the night. You can do a 15-minute inversion where it's a yoga pose where you put your feet like an L up the wall for 15 minutes, cover your eyes, and it releases hormones in your body that are similar to sleep. It works, I swear. It's amazing. It's not the total same, but you will feel reactivated and energized. So prioritize your own self-care. What's one action you can take to meet a basic need this week? And how will you model that for your team? So when I say specific and achievable, I mean specific and achievable. For today, each day, I'm going to drink 3 of these bottles of water to make sure that I am getting enough water. I'm going to go outside for 2 minutes. I'm going to join Mindful Fed, a new government-wide community of practice that meets every Wednesday at 1:30 to 2 in a mindfulness practice, to hone in on my attention and to stop and just breathe. What will you do? So just grab your pen and make a note. Number 2 is, if you're struggling with cynicism, do focus on those bright spots. Just know that our brains are actually predisposed toward the negative. It's a survival mechanism. 3-to-1, Barbara Fredrickson, who is a researcher, a positive psychologist, one of the pioneers in positive psychology, University of Chapel Hill, has found that a 3-to-1, we have to focus on 3 positive things to offset 1 negative in terms of stickiness. So our brains are predisposed in that session. But another study found out of the University of Pennsylvania that when we log 3 positive things, 3 strengths, 3 aspirations, things that went well in our day every day for 2 weeks, it increases our happiness levels, our work satisfaction, our sense of collaboration for upward to 6 months. Now talk about an ROI. So this is a great thing. And if you can give yourself like a brag, some things that you did great, which is different than gratitude. There's a very active component to this, an agency component of this. You will absolutely experience dividends. So if this is something that's hard, do a 2-for-1. Get an action buddy and text each other your bright spots every day. It creates a sense of accountability. You have a witness, you're breaking a sense of isolation, and you're more likely to take action. This can be a hard one to start. It is so good. And finally, in terms of agency, don't get stuck in despair where what you do doesn't matter. Whether it's connecting to organizational mission, vision, seeing the impacts of your labor. I know that right now we at OPM are going through our mid-year review process of looking at our IDPs, our individual development plans. And so one question we're always asked, how is what you're doing connecting to impact? What difference is it making? So do focus on that. Where we focus gets bigger. So a brief exercise, grab that pen again and draw a line. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on the WTFs. What's the fundamental? One thing that contributes to a sense of overwhelm or that things don't matter is when we don't prioritize things in terms of importance and essentialism. So where we name it, we can tame it. Draw that line. On the left-hand side, what are things that you maybe even looking at your to-do list for today, getting really specific and brass tacks. Looking at your calendar, what's on there? That's nice to have. It would be great if it gets done. It's not an essential. And then what are those fundamentals where there's no negotiables, no matter what, it must be done for today. And this can relate both in terms of the workload, your to-do list, as well as those things that bring you connections with friends, family, your own self-care practices. What are those things? It could be picking up your kids, dropping them off, making sure that you've made yourself lunch, things along those lines. I have a person who I've coached. She has on her calendar, really eat lunch, because that way she does. And then people that can see her schedule don't schedule over that because they know how vitally important it is. So just looking at your calendar and marking it along that spectrum. Going deeper and operationalizing this, put 5 minutes on your calendar each day where you can futurecast into the next day and plan ahead, anchoring in what are your essentials, your WTFs for the day ahead. You'll feel more in control, more focused, and in a sense of agency. So align those essentials, take those balcony times, and similar to what Julian said, I'm going to build on it and go even a little further of, here's my request and my challenge for each of you. Ban the blanket yes. When questions and requests come in, do conditional yeses or just say no. Yes, I'll take that meeting if instead of an hour, it's 30 minutes and you send me ahead of time what it is that we're hoping to walk away having achieved. Yes, I will take that meeting if it's a walking meeting and we're out of the MS Teams Zoom world. This has been one of the biggest favorites of people is returning off of the camera because Zoom fatigue is real. Moving your body can increase a sense of ideation, brainstorming, idea flexibility, and then and also that sense of bonding, and people benefit from it too, the people that you're working with. So to recap, again, first things first for your self-care. If you do one thing for yourself today, what is it? I think I'm going to give myself a face mask with my 3-year-old later today. He's really into that, which is super fun. Those 3 good things every day. Choose a consistent time of the day that you'll do that. If you're a morning person, kick off your day reflecting on the previous. If you're a night person, end the day with that. And then, of course, agency. Anchor in your WTFs and really work that conditional yes. It can make a big, big difference in terms of your energy, your motivation, and your sense of inspiration. So I hope that you've walked away with a few tidbits and tricks that you can apply in your day-to-day. I also, in a former life, I launched the nation's first nonpartisan civic leadership community focused on being healthy to lead effectively in civic life today called Courage to Run. There's also a free app of 50 evidence-based wellness practices that boost performance and well-being within the contours of civic life. It's called Courage to Run. You can find it in the Apple Store. It's free, as I mentioned. I'm sorry for the Android users that hasn't made it to the Droid store, so it's only in the Apple Store at this point in time in iOS. But it's always an honor. I'm at OPM now, so feel free to drop me a line. I'm always here for fellowship, encouragement, and guidance. So thank you again so much, Emily. It's been a delight as always. And for everyone, I hope you have a truly phenomenal day here within the space of NextGen. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Frieda. We always appreciate you and your insights for our community. So thank you for sharing your story. I have one final poll for our attendees here before we sign out of our opening keynote. And for this one, for our friends who are federal govies, we are looking for your GS level. And for our state and local friends, we're looking for your years of experience. So I always like to clear that up as well. This poll is the final poll in this session. And as a quick reminder, for you to get your CPE credit, you have to take all of the polls during the session, stay on the whole time, and fill out the post-event survey. So make sure you do all three. Now, I know a lot of you said, oh no, I missed a poll, or oh my goodness, something was going wrong on my screen. Don't fret, we'll figure it all out. We will still get you the credit, but do your best, of course, to take all of the polls. All right, up next, we have our first round of breakout sessions, and you can access those sessions in the conference hall in about 15 minutes. You can plan to attend one of the following breakout sessions that you see listed in the agenda, of course. And don't worry, because if you want to attend more than one, well, you can catch those sessions on demand. All sessions are posted into the conference hall about 30 minutes after they are aired live. So let's say you attended this session, you want to come back and view this one again. It'll be live at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. All right. We're going to head you all into the next session, but first we're going to get a look at the results of this poll. And on our Fed side, it looks like most of you are in the GS 11 through 13. And on the state and local side, we have a pretty even mix. So thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you all so much for kicking off our first hour of our NextGen Summit today. Up next, you can choose from how to deal with an underperforming team, discover and communicate your strengths. You can join me over in the session from numbers to narrative using data as an asset. You've got DEIA in 2023 and how to pick your battles. We'll see you over in one of those sections in just a few minutes. Bye.